So I have been looking at something really interesting today. A friend of mine, a founder that I know, reached out to me a couple of weeks ago and was like, "Hey, I have my product going to market. It's a prop tech platform, and product going to market, and I'm trying to work on visibility and getting speaking engagements and all this kind of stuff." And so I recommended, like, okay, try Afrotech. Submit an application, and then I was like, okay, before we do all this stuff, we have to fix your entity online because LLMs are like essentially what has been happening. Is that LLMs can see him, like based on what's online and what's on Meta properties and what's on LinkedIn, but it can't distinguish him from other people with the same name, right? So not only can it not distinguish him from other people with the same name, but it can't distinguish him from other versions of him from where he's lived in different cities and worked in different industries, right? So we have a disambiguation problem, like a serious one, right? Like he's showing up as multiple different people, and in some cases being conflated with the other people that have his name. So last week I was like, hey, you need a canonical bio. Walked him through what the canonical bio should include, like how to create it for himself without it being a heavy lift. And then talked to him about actually I talked to his AI about that's a whole nother story. But I talked to his Claude about disambiguation, that was going to be, that's a problem that needed to be solved before he started moving into any kind of PR push. So today I'm going and I'm like, I need to, start building case studies for this. So I'm looking at how he's showing up. It's been 8 days since I told him about the canonical bio, 6 days since I, told his Claude about the disambiguation problem. We need to resolve his entity. Essentially, we need all of him to like the Doctor Strange things where he becomes a lot of different Doctor Stranges, and then he just kind of like floats all into himself. Like, I don't know what that's called, but that's what it looks like in machines. So I'm like, okay, we have to, telling his Claude, we have to solve the disambiguation problem. So 8 days after I told him about the canonical bio, 6 days after I, told his Claude about disambiguation, I'm doing a temperature check today, and I'm looking across channels. And here is what I have found. God, this is so good. So one of the things that I'm going to just mute this for the time being. Yeah, let's turn off Slack for a second. So there are a couple of really cool things that I want to talk about that I've seen. Number one, I have been watching how, LLMs surface people and topics and information for a couple of years now. And, it's always kind of changing. So one of the things that I noticed, I pulled from ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Perplexity, and Copilot today to see how his knowledge graph is doing, like to do a temperature check. And here's what I found. So let's start with the fun stuff. ChatGPT, I pulled a ChatGPT, signed into a Google account that I just started that has never actually accessed ChatGPT. So signed into that Google account, but not logged into ChatGPT. I haven't created a ChatGPT for that account, so it wasn't logged in. And then I had another ChatGPT open in an incognito window. That was just an incognito window, right? So for both of those, the response came back, and they were different, a little bit different in how the machine responded. But for both of those, the response came back was that essentially ChatGPT can't confidently verify that this is not a private individual, and therefore it won't surface anything about him, right? Which I was like, what? And it linked to legal clarity. So I was reading like the laws around public individual, like public figure versus private individual. And I'm like, I've never seen an LLM say that before. Now, Perplexity has told me before when I was asking for a list of consultants, it was like, we don't really put humans in a grocery cart. So I could tell you how you could do this yourself, but I'm not about to produce a list. I was like, weird. You used to produce a list. Like, when you stop producing lists based on me asking you to produce a list. So that was that. And then with Copilot, because the founder went in and updated his LinkedIn, Copilot pulled a pristine representation of him directly from his LinkedIn. So everything that he wants known about himself right now, Copilot was able to pull it because it's relying on because LinkedIn is in the Microsoft ecosystem. So it pulled Copilot in like just beautifully. It was so perfect. So spot on. he ended up using his middle initial to differentiate him. I forgot to say that. He ended up using his middle initial to differentiate him from the other people who have more visibility in machines than he does. So to differentiate himself, he uses his middle initial. So I'm doing these searches based on like his first name and last name, and then again searching based on first name, middle initial, and last name, and seeing what comes up. And over again, he's not really showing up for first name, last name, but he's showing up for first name, middle initial, last name, with some caveats, right? So ChatGPT was one of those caveats. ChatGPT was like, I can't verify that he's not a private individual. So there's a lot of people with that name, you know what I mean? Like what you trying to pull, like you want to tell me a little bit more about him. And so I gave his business name, and it was like, the business is legit, but again, I can't verify that this private individual is tied to this business for you. So do with that what you will. So Claude pulls in 3 profiles. The first profile is the founder. I did the search for first name, middle initial, last name. Claude pulls up 3 different profiles for first name and last name, but they're all tech founders, and they're all showing us sort of, kind of, maybe a little bit, possibly semi-public. So the first one is this founder with his new identity that we've started building out since last week. It shows that he's a tech entrepreneur and where he lives right now, and talks about his innovation, right? Just a couple of words about his innovation, maybe 25, 30 words. The second profile that it pulls up is for the same name, a different city. This one is for Stone Mountain, Georgia. Same industry, but not industry, but also a tech founder, but for a different website, right? And then the third profile that Claude pulled up was same name, first name and last name, in Portland, Oregon, for another tech founder, and it talks about what his accomplishments were, right? And then it says, could you give me more context about which one of these guys is the guy that you're looking for? So I thought that was interesting, right? What's interesting about it is the first 2 profiles are one guy. And that's what I mean by entity resolution, because he's lived in different cities. So his knowledge graph is not consolidated yet. Like the machines don't know, like the machines aren't always sure that those 2 profiles belong to the same person. They're part of the same knowledge graph. So I thought that was interesting for Claude. Now, Perplexity did a really interesting thing, right? So Perplexity nailed it, like nailed who this guy is, pulled him up based on his middle name. I mean, his first name, middle initial, and last name, talked about what his capabilities were. I mean, talked about his innovation, talked a little bit about other projects that he's tied to. But in the first paragraph, it says there is also a separate profile for a founder with the same name in the remote work software space, known as the co-founder and former CEO of like this company. So I thought that was interesting, right? And then it cited Stackforce, it cited LinkedIn for this other founder, and it cited the website of the founder that I'm working with. It says like it's able to match the founder that I'm working with the actual product. It says, so that's the most likely match based on what you're talking about. And it talks about like based on like his LinkedIn, like has that middle initial. He has a website with that middle initial, that kind of thing. Now here's what I thought was interesting. So I've been asking LLMs how confident they are in the answers that they're giving. And it's something to watch. I can't really say for, one way or another that it's working or anything. But one of the things that I said, so how do we differentiate confidently? I want info on a specific founder. Is this the one? I said, is he the one that was in the army or no? And so Perplexity goes, yes, this appears to be the same guy who was in the army. And, it talks about his how long he was in the military and what his experience is like. And then there's a section that says how to tell it's him. And this is what I love. It says this founder is identifiable by a cluster of matching details. And I thought that was interesting because I was like, I don't think I've ever seen an LLM tell me what the cluster of matching details is that it's looking at to determine confidently that this is the founder or this is the answer that I want. And so it names it names a couple of things. It names the innovations that are tied to that name, coupled with a location, a city in the United States, coupled with a tagline. I was like, holy crap. Like, holy crap. It says this combination is much more specific than just the name, which helps distinguish him from other people with that name, like in remote work or in other industries. And it says confidence level. I'd call this high confidence. The direct self-description on his site says he's a U.S. Army veteran. LinkedIn profile for the same business identity includes Army Reserves experience. That helps me. That helps me understand where to put content, right? So there are so many things spinning around in my head right now. Number one, the confidence level thing. I think that it's producing a different, it's not producing different results. It's giving me context for why it's giving me the answers that it's giving me, which for me is invaluable, right? The second thing is that ChatGPT is deferring to legal statutes to determine for individuals whether or not to surface them in AI results, which if you don't think that affects your visibility and your ability to turn ChatGPT into a revenue channel, you better think again. So that means that essentially for AI visibility work, especially when you're dealing with founder-led companies or consultants or expert-led organizations, you are talking about changing how AIs categorize that individual from private individual or private citizen to an actual public figure, which comes with its own set of like legal ramifications, not ramifications in a bad way, but ramifications in like ramifications. Oh, look at these legal ramifications. Awesome. So that's fantastic. And then the other thing is like looking at how fast Copilot assembled his identity based strictly on his LinkedIn profile. And then looking at how Perplexity isn't hedging, but it's presenting options and saying, which one do you want? Right? And so far, what I know that he's changed, he put up a website. I told him he needed a canonical bio. He needed a personal website. And I told him that he needed a page on an about page on his platform that tied him to the innovation. And that is exactly what ChatGPT said, was like, I see the innovation, but I can't tie him to it. There's no way for me to actually tie him to it. And plus he's like kind of private, which begs the question to me, what signals is ChatGPT looking for to determine whether someone that switches it, that recategorizes an individual from private citizen to public figure? That's what I would like to be able to detail pretty clearly, because that part's going to be really important. It is April 20th, 2:16 p.m. This video is already 15 minutes long, so I'm gonna just get off now. But that's what I found today. That's part of what I found today, and I think it's fantastic. And then the other takeaway here is this took here's one more takeaway. So in Bing, what was it in Bing? Let me see. Hang on. In Bing, the only thing that comes up for his new identity with his first name, his middle initial, and his last name is his LinkedIn, which, okay, I'll accept that. That's fine. His website isn't coming up yet. It's not indexed in Bing yet. In Google, however, if you search for his first name, his middle initial, and his last name, his website comes up, right? So that's just basically a keyword match. That's not anything kind of AI visibility magic or anything. It's just a keyword match. You search, you put in a query for this guy's first, middle, and last name, then a website with the same information comes up, right? That makes sense. It's an exact match, which tells me that, even though, because at first I was like, Gemini pulled up absolutely nothing. That's the other thing. Gemini was just like, what you talking about? So Gemini conflated this guy, even though like the other guy doesn't have a middle initial. Gemini conflated the founder that I'm working with the founder that has the longest history and the deepest digital footprint online. And just to give context to this, both these guys are guys that, well, the other founder, ChatGPT, said was semi-public, a semi-public profile, indexable or whatever. And Gemini just conflated them. And I was like, I thought Gemini and Google were like the same company. Like, what am I? Then I was like, oh, wait a minute. One is a keyword search and one is looking for entity resolution. So without the entity resolution, without a solid like knowledge graph to pull from, Gemini is going to defer to the one with the most, with the most trust and the largest digital footprint, and then just consolidate all of the people with this guy's name, all of the people who have this name into this guy, the most famous version of, the most famous guy with this name, which I thought was interesting. Cause I was like, Gemini is a Google product. How is it not able to differentiate? If it sees the website, surely it should see it don't see the website. It don't see all of that. One, because one is an exact match with a search engine, which means that's just SEO. And then this one, in order for the answer engine part of this to kick in and the generative experience to kick in, it's going to generate something, but it's going to be wrong because there's no entity resolution. So for Gemini, there's not even another version of this knowledge, like another version of this entity to pull from, because this guy, the guy from Portland, his is the only one that's resolved. His is the only one that looks trustworthy in machines. So everyone else who has that same name, if you do a search for them, they will come up as this guy because he's the most trustworthy entity in the machines right now. So that's the other thing. I was like, okay, so that makes a clear case for the difference between SEO and AEO. I don't care what you say, they're not the same. They're not the same. So like LLMs are looking for something completely different when it comes to recommending brands and individuals. Now, if you're just talking about researching a topic, AEO and SEO, go crazy. It's like you're essentially providing enough information on the topic for LLMs to be able to scrape your website and give somebody an answer. It's not a big thing. But when it comes to recommendations, that's when confidence becomes really important to machines. Without confidence, they're not going to recommend a brand or an individual. They're just not. So I was like, this is like the only case that you ever have to make for the difference between AEO and SEO, because SEO, just like, yeah, like if you got the keywords on your site and we can tell what your site is about, go crazy. But with AEO, it's like, well, is this even a real person? Is this even your real phone number? You had to be old enough to get that. So anyway, just having a lot of nerd fun today with LLMs and looking at how things are being surfaced and putting together a case study and being like, there's all these different angles and this is happening and I can see this now. It's so cool. I just love this work. So I think that's it. That's all I have to say about that.